So, good morning, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the fifth session of Literary Matters. I'm Dr. Sohana Manzoor, literary editor of the Daily Star. Our session today will focus on mainly on literary translation, and we have today with us two guests whom there's so much to say about them, but I will try to keep the introduction as brief as possible. So we have today Ms. Arifa Rahman, who is an associate professor and currently the head of the Department of English and Humanities at the University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh. She is also the executive editor of Crossings, a journal of English studies, an established translator who has translated many of Shaheen Akhtar's short stories. She has also worked with Syed Manzoorul Islam, Rabia Khatun, Qazi Shahid Ahmed, among others. Her translations have gone into many journals and anthologies such as Bengal Lights, The Book of Dhaka, The Escape and Other Stories, When the Mango Tree Blossomed, and Our Many Longings, contemporary short fiction from Bangladesh. Then we have Marzia Rahman, another well known translator who is currently working in a collaborative project on Shahaduzzaman's novel, Ekjon Kamla Lebu. Her translation of Syed Shamsul Haq's The Aftermath, Bengali title Ditiyo Diner Kahini, has been published by ULAB Press in 2022. Lately, she has also been popularizing flash fiction in Bangladesh. Her works have been published in Six Seasons Review, The Book of Dhaka, Writing Places Anthology, The Demoness, The Best Bangladeshi Stories, 1971 to 2021, When the Mango Tree Blossomed, and Ekushe Anthology, etc. So both of them have been writing for Daily Star on special and different occasions. So thank you, Arifapa, and thank you, Marzia, for being with us here today.
Thank you for having us.
Um,
Thank you for having us.
so I will dive into the questions right away because we have like an hour or so. But please take your time. I know you have been translating for quite some time now. I believe Arifapa, it has been like almost 25 years or so because I remember I saw your first translation being published in 97, right? And even Marcia, like I think it should be like about 15 years or something like that. So that's really really amazing. So my since you're both translators, and as I said, that our focus today is on translation. So let me start off with a question, about your interest in literary translation. Like, what influenced you into launching your journey to be a translator? So maybe since Arifapa has been translating for longer, we should ask Arifapa first. So what was it that brought you into translation?
Thank you so much, Sohana, first of all, for inviting me to this Literary Matters session. It's a great privilege to be here. And thank you for focusing on translation in this episode. And when you said 25 years, I was just thinking, really, 25 years, that sounds such a long time ago. But yeah, I guess it would be about that. I don't remember the exact year, but I believe it was like I was still in the, I was still in Dhaka University in the English department as a student. And I think, I don't know if I can say that I had an interest in literary translation, and that's why I started translating. It actually was accidental, or maybe fate, or I don't know what to say about it. But it all started, I think, when Niazaman Madam, Niazaman Madam, she is a prolific translator herself. And so she was publishing this book, 1947, The Escape and Other Stories, 1947 and Other Stories. So in that volume, she actually assigned me 3 stories to translate. And at that time, I had never done translation before, but she trusted me, I guess, for some reason. And I did 3 stories for that volume. And I was paid for it, which was really amazing at that time.
That's something.
Absolutely, yes. So it was really great, as a student to earn money in that way, and see translation as a, as something very that people can appreciate. So that's how I believe it started, because I don't remember translating anything before that. So that was my start. And after that, once three stories is quite a lot for a new translator, and to see it published, to see my name in the book, and to have people read it and tell me that they liked it and all that, so that was a big boost for me. And that, I think, propelled me into this path somewhat. And from then it was, I enjoyed doing the job. I liked, the short story format. And I think that's what kind of launched me into this path. And maybe, if, as you have mentioned, from the description you gave of my bio and all that, you notice that most of my translations are short stories, and that's the form that I think I like most, because it allows me to do the work in a very short amount of time, and I can see the results faster. So if we would go in for a longer work, what happens is that you get stuck with, you have to commit yourself for a longer period of time. So it takes a lot more. Uh, it takes much more time, of course, to see the outcome of that. But for short stories, I can do it. I can, see it published here and there, and it makes it more fulfilling, to see it out there. People talk about it, and I think what keeps me most satisfied is hearing about how the writers themselves are becoming known more because of those translations. So I think that's what keeps me going in this. So, yeah, thank you.
And obviously, you love it because you have kept it up. Because sometimes people just give it up. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I do enjoy doing it. Like I said, it's nice to see myself, my name in print. That's one. And of course, being able to bring all these stories which were previously unknown out into the open, out into a onto a platform where people from all over the place are seeing it. In fact, I teach online, so, as you know. So in a university in the US, and I'm actually teaching one of my own translations over there. And one of my colleagues actually asked me to share some of those stories, because and he started teaching one of those stories as well. So, which is really fulfilling, again, that our culture, our literature is getting known amongst people who would question, where is Bangladesh, from people like that. They're now reading our literature and learning about our culture. And I get questions, that when my colleague doesn't understand something, or is, he's afraid that he might make a mistake about interpreting something about the story, so he'll ask me questions. I'll give him, loads of information, and then that helps him to explain things in his class. So that's something, I think, that's very encouraging, and keeps me, um, really tied up with this work. And I, as you said, yeah, I do love it.
Okay. So let's now then turn to Marzia. Marzia, what induced you to, you know,
Yeah.
start
Thank
translating?
you for having me, Sonapa. And I'd also like to thank the Daily Star for organizing this literary address. I have been writing for 15 years now, but I took up translation much later. I think it
Mm.
was in 2014. Yes, it was in 2014. Dhaka DTC, Dhaka Translation Center, held a workshop on literary translation. They held a number of workshops in the later years, and I participated in most of them. So I remember in the first phase of the workshop, we were 10 of us working on a single story with the writer present in the room, and our workshop leader was the famous Arunava Singha. So
Mm.
it was the first time I set foot in translation, and more than anything, I think I enjoyed the process. It was so much interesting, recreating the same story into English. It was a lot of fun. And then in the second phase, we were each given a story to work on. And then this is how the book of Dhaka came to be. And in so early in my career, having a story published in the book of Dhaka was a great incentive for me. I think this is when I became very interested. But at that point, I was not sure if I would take it up seriously. So, what happened in 2018, I attended another workshop. It was held in at the University of East Anglia in Norwich. BCLT, British Center for Literary Translation, they held this workshop every year with the help of the National Center of Writing. But in 2018, for the first time, they invited Bangla participants. They mostly concentrate on European languages. So it was the first time, and I think it was the last time also, because we were the smallest group. Only three of us attended the workshop. And again, our workshop leader was Arunava Singha. So it was such a wonderful experience. It was a 7 day long literary translation and creative writing summer school. So I met writers and translators from all over the world. And I'm still in touch with some of them, and I'm working on a collaborative project with one of the participants. So I think this is when I became serious, and I thought, okay, this is what I want to be. This is what I wanted to do. So yeah, that's it.
No, that's good to know because sometimes, people often say that, workshop kind of things for translation, it doesn't always work. But it's good to know. And I know about the workshops at DTC. So it's wonderful to hear from you such, good things about it.
And I didn't
Um,
start very long ago. Actually, I started from 2014. Actually, I've not translated
yeah,
anything
that's
before.
it. So I think
So
probably I kind of thought that uh, I think you mentioned something about starting writing from 2007 or something. So I think I
yeah, yeah,
basically misunderstood. Yeah. So
yeah.
okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about your general approach to translation because there are people talk about so many different kinds of processes. So how do you do it? I mean, do you adopt like uh, different styles for different genres, or like Arifa already said that she's most comfortable with short stories, but or also like can you refer to some specific projects that you really enjoyed working with? So
Okay.
maybe Marzia, since you were talking about
Yeah, yeah, sure.
workshops
Yeah,
and all that.
when I start translating a story, I do not read the story in advance. I read it as I go along. So I do the first draft very first, and then in the second or third draft, I try to pay attention to everything: structure, format, rhythm, music, silence, even silence, and if there is staccato tone. And I try to pay attention what the writer is trying to say and also what he is not trying to say. I cannot give voice to it what the writer is not saying. And what I do in the final draft, when I'm done translating the story, what I do, I read it aloud. Sometimes I use the read aloud in available in MS Word. So I listen to the story very carefully. I approach the story as a reader. So I wanted to make sure that my translated text sounded the same as the original did, or whether I'm getting the same feeling, the same excitement, thrill, or the enjoyment which I felt when I read the original story. So yes, this is pretty much my process, and I think I have translated novella, I have translated poems, and I think they are the hardest to translate. And but I'm agree with Arifap also. I enjoy translating short stories because they're quick, they're fast, and you can see the result faster. I because I have translated a novel. It took me 2 years. So yeah, I enjoy translating the short stories. Yeah.
Arifapa, you want to add anything or take any
Yeah, I
different
was
approach?
just no, I was just listening to Marzia describing her process, and I think she has put it very nicely. I don't think I would have been able to explain my process. I don't even know if I have a process because I'm not so organized when it comes to translation. Primarily because I do it just out of love and interest. So I don't follow any formal process, but like Marzia, I don't read the story in advance. So I just plunge right in, start from the first sentence, and I start the translation process right away. And then even if I've read the story, before, I take some time between translating it and reading it, so that I my emotions or my feelings don't get mixed up in the process. So I just start translating, from the first word and everything, and I go through it word by word, sentence by sentence, and more, of course, less, of course, the sense by sense. I don't really go for the sense, sense by sense kind of translation process, because I like to, because I think that I'm afraid that it may take away from what the writer is saying. I may miss something that the writer wanted to say because I skipped a word or I skipped a sentence or something like that. So I try to stay faithful to the original, but I do the translation twice. So first of all, I go through the whole thing and I do it, and then I set the text aside, the original text aside, and then I go through the story itself as an original, as if that is the original, and then I edit it, and I, change up words, I change up structure of the sentences. Sometimes I move things around slightly, but again, to keep the authenticity of the original, I try not to make too many changes, but I have to make sure that it sounds right in the target language. So usually I do
Yes.
like Bangla to English. I do less of the English to Bangla because, I'm more comfortable the other way around. So I do Bangla to English mostly, and it has to sound right in English, and it has to sound appropriate for the target audience, because I have to keep in mind that typically the target audience for the English text would not be another Bangladeshi, or someone who is very familiar with Bangla, because I assume that they would read the Bangla instead. So instead of the English translation. So keeping that in mind, I try to make sure that the things are clear. But I also make sure that if there are certain words that are untranslatable, because there are certain words like that, I maintain the original. And some people like to italicize the Bangla words or the other words, but I think that kind of otherizes the language and the culture itself. So I don't want the English reader to feel that they are um, looking at a different culture. So I want them immersed in the experience. So to do that, I don't like to point out that here, hey, this is a word you are not supposed to understand or you don't know. So I keep, the text the same. um, and it depends, of course, on the publisher how they want to do this. Some publishers like to have it italicized, that's their policy, and I don't have a say in that. But if it were up to me, that's how I would keep everything in the same format, so that it doesn't sound or look like visually or to the ear that it's different or it's from somewhere else. And if necessary, I might add a footnote, but even so, I try not to, because I hope that within the body of the translation, within the context of the translation, the meaning will come out. So um, so that's basically my
Yeah,
process.
I think what you're saying, I think that's one of the most difficult things about translation actually, like, how to maintain that balance, so that it doesn't, it's readable, so that, there are not too many footnotes and things like that.
Right, right.
So,
And yeah.
and, one of the things that we see today, like in the recent times, literary translation has garnered a lot of interest in Bangladesh. So, as translators, so how do you feel about it? I mean, in other words, what are your thoughts on the future of translating Bangladeshi literature in English? I mean, there's been really a lot of discussion and
Mhm.
talk,
Yeah. So I
even on
can
Facebook.
I can jump in on that if you don't mind.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, I have a lot of opinions about this. So I am very happy, very excited that people are taking an interest in this, and it is absolutely necessary because Our literature is great. We have great literature. It needs to be read and heard by others beyond our borders. So we can't be great just because we say we're great. We want everyone to agree with us that we are great. But to do that, we need to reach a wider audience, and of course, this is one way to do that. Um, and yes, we the growth in the interest and everything is wonderful. And as Marzia mentioned, I was a part of that the Dhaka translation workshop as well. We both attended, and that's how we met actually. So
Yes.
yes, and the workshops were wonderful because it brought together people who were really interested in the process. And we did do literary translations. We did short stories, one short story by one author, 10 of us. And then the second workshop was one story each. And another workshop, we did one poetry. So we had a collection of poetry come out of that process. Again, about 10 of us. So the DTC actually limited the number of people for the workshop so that we could individually get the feedback that we needed. And also, we had people who were genuinely interested in the process. So, from that, I think that quite a number of good translators emerged. People who are starting out, like Marzia herself mentioned, and people who had been in the field. I had been, but I had been doing this as an amateur, or I didn't have any formal training or anything. But that's what the outcome of those workshops were, and I'm looking forward to more workshops like that, and I plan to attend them when they happen. Um, but I'm also afraid for the future because a lot of people appear to think that this is easy, that more than like corporate translation or specialized translation, that literary translation is easy. It's not, right? So but because a lot of people think it's easy, they make attempts, and especially for poetry, which is the most difficult format, I think. And
Yes.
unless you really understand poetry, you should not translate. So
Yeah, I can relate to that because like I love poetry, but I think if I start translating, it would be simply horrible because it's a very different thing. I mean, you have to be really
yeah,
professional and your
right,
heart has
right.
to be in it.
Exactly. And I think maybe because of the size of poems, or because of the shorter lines or something, maybe it looks easy to a lot of people, so they make an attempt with poetry first. But I think that's a big mistake. So if anyone is interested in trying their hand at literary translation, I would say to go for a short story rather than poetry, because poetry really needs specialized attention. Yeah, while I'm excited about the growth in the number of literary translators, and I see in your literature page, you publish some really good translations. But I'm sure that it comes from after sifting through hundreds and hundreds of submissions, I'm sure. Um, so that only the really good ones are published. So I'm encouraged by the variety you have in the page, which shows that there are good translators out there. Um, and it's important that we nurture this culture, that we provide platforms, that we provide the training, I think, for these translators who are doing it out of interest, out of curiosity maybe. But I'm thinking, how some of our major novels are being translated outside of the country. So
Yes.
that kind of feels like as if our literature is being taken over by someone else. I don't want to put anyone down here, but I think that this is something that we should pay more attention to, and you know, get all these good translators together if necessary to um, create a pool
Pool of
maybe.
translators.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, who will really carry our literature forward rather than have it published by or translated by someone else who may or may not, because they're not immersed in the culture, may or may not understand everything about it, even if the language is the same, right? So I hope that that happens soon. So yeah.
Yeah, Arifa, I think you have basically focused on much of the, the crucial things about translation, the kind of things that we see. Marzia,
Yeah,
would you
and these
like
are
to?
things that concern me very much, and I'm really passionate about this. So I guess I am saying a lot of things here. Uh, so just stop
Now,
me if I.
Arifa
Marzia,
has said everything almost. I just want to add, yes, I think we should work together, because what we don't have here is we don't have good editors. So there might be translators, but we need a team. Translators and editors, they can work together and they can pitch the idea, the novel to the publishers. No, so we need a team to work together. So, and I'm happy that the changes have taken place. I remember when the hair festival was held at the British Council for the first time. It is called Lit Fest now, but it was the first time it was held. It was organized by Tahmima Ana. So it was called Hair Festival, and I attended there. There were so many stalls, but all displaying Bangla books by Bangladeshi authors. There are very few English books written by Bangladeshi authors, and I don't remember seeing any translated books. So I think we have come a long way from there, and I'm thanks to editors like Niazaman Madam, who have been translating, editing, and bringing out so many anthologies and books year after year. In just 2 years, last 2 years, we have wonderful anthologies like The Demoness and When the Mango Tree Blossomed, and you brought out our Many Longings and Ekushi anthology. So I think things look impressive, but still a lot needed to be done. We need to work harder, we need to work more, and yes, I think that's it.
since you talked about editors, so here, Arifa, I have a question for you because Arifa is not just a translator; she also is an editor. So does your identity of an editor, this editor's identity, what kind of impact does it have on your translation or vice versa? I mean, how does it work?
Thank you, both of you, actually. Thank you, Marzia, for bringing up the role of the editor. It is an extremely important part of the process, yes. Um, and as an editor, I think what I'll say is that, editors, I don't know how to answer this question, but I think that, the way it impacts my translation is that I'm able to edit my own writing. So, the process I explained earlier on, that I do it twice. So the first time I do it as a translator, and then the second time I do it as a reader. And I guess I should have mentioned the third time I do it is as an editor. So I go through it to fix all the things that need fixing, and I hope that I'm good enough to be able to spot the issues that are there and take care of those. Um, but like Marzia mentioned, Niaz Madam has been a great influence, as well as a great contributor to this scenario. And I do have some stories in those books that Marcia mentioned, and in your book as well. So I think as an editor, it is important for me to be able to make sure that everything I pass on to the publisher is as accurate as possible. And I think that's where I'll leave it at, actually. So yeah,
Yes.
my point is just to make sure that that things are as accurate as I can possibly make it, so that it's not too hard for the publisher to publish, and also it's the mistakes are taken care of beforehand. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
sometimes I feel like I also translate and I edit the the literary page. So one problem that I often face is like I keep on editing till the last moment, and sometimes it's really
Yeah,
becomes a
that's true.
problem. Okay. So now let's turn a little bit away from translation because both of you have, other identities as well. Like I talked a little bit about editing for Arifa Pub. I guess it doesn't really uh, allow me to go too much into it, but Arifa, but the other identity that you have. So I will first ask Arifa, but then I'll come back to Marcia. You have talked about yourself as a translator, but you have another very significant identity of an academic. You have been also in teaching for more than two decades now. So again, what made you take up teaching? Was it just you just mentioned how you started translating. Was it something like that, or is it something that you chose consciously?
No, I think everything in my life happened by chance, or it was meant to happen, so it happened. So I think that's kind of like the same process with the teaching. So once my results came out after I graduated from Dhaka University, it was sort of like the natural progression. You uh, come first in the class, so your automatic sort of place is in academia, and that's pretty much how it happened. So I joined Jahangirnagar right after my results came out, and that's where I stayed for 3.5 years, and then I went to the US to do my master's. And um, and then there I after I graduated, I found a position at a university over there, Riviera University, where I started to teach as an adjunct. And in fact, I'm actually still teaching there online.
You still
Yeah, yeah. So I do that as an adjunct over there. So I was teaching face to face initially, and then once they gave me the option for the online teaching, so I kind of switched and took advantage of that, and that has sort of helped me to. In fact, that was one of the primary reasons that I connected with ULab, because that online teaching experience actually brought me into ULab as a trainer for the faculty, because the ULab was trying to transition into this, adopt this learning management system, and they needed someone to
Yes,
train the
Moodle, right?
faculty.
Because you
Yes,
are the one who actually built up that Moodle
yes,
at ULab.
yes, exactly.
Yes, right.
So yeah, that's how I actually came in. I taught one course as an adjunct, and then I was training the faculty members, and then I became a full-time faculty of ULab. So that's how it happened. So it was like kind of accidental. Teaching chose me. I didn't choose teaching, and I kind of stuck to it because in the end, teaching is something where um, maybe immediately you don't see the results, but after a couple of years or a few years, you see the outcome through your students who are doing well, and they come back and they tell you that I'm doing this, or I wanted to do this, and you helped me with this or that. You gave me a recommendation letter, or you advised me, or something in your class told me that I should do this. Things like that. That's what um, you know makes me love this profession. And I hope that I am helping students to create some create their own impact on the world at large. So that's what that's how it has happened with me. So I just kept going with this. I enjoy it.
Yeah,
I don't like the grading part. That's the worst part of the job.
I think that's the worst part
But
of
everything
teaching.
else, yeah, everything else is wonderful about teaching, actually. So yeah, I
Yeah,
hope I
but
answered your
I'm
question.
I'm also your colleague at ULab, so I know that you are very dedicated at whatever you do here. But like I said, that you are talking about teaching as a very rewarding thing, but it's also a very difficult profession. So, can you refer to any particular incident that makes you feel that all your hard work is worthwhile? Or maybe you can also talk about some challenges that you face in this profession. That will
Right.
also
Yeah.
make the students realize. I'm sure many of your students are watching it now,
I
so they
hope they
would
are.
know that
I hope.
it's very
No, I
difficult
mean,
as well.
it is. Well, yeah, I mean, challenges as a teacher, you often have, classes full of different students, different capabilities. So one challenge, of course, is to make sure that everyone is on the same page, or you are able to reach each of the students with what you're teaching. You don't want someone to be left behind because they're, you're going too fast, or someone to feel discouraged because you're going too slow. So maintaining that balance is very, very difficult. Um, because when someone talks a lot more in the class as a student, you tend to focus more on that student. So what about the student in the back, or the one who's not speaking too much, or not making eye contact? How do you draw that person in? um, we have this sort of system now that we talk about active learning, or student centered learning, where students need to be at the center of the learning process. It's very difficult in Bangladesh, especially because we are sort of trained not to challenge our elders, or to talk
Yes.
to our teachers as an equal. But and as a student in Dhaka University, that's how I experienced it as well. I used to sit in my bench, listen to the teacher lectures, and they leave the room, maybe a question or two here and there, but that's it. It was more teacher centered. But now the system has changed, so we need to draw our students in. We need to make sure that they're involved in the learning process. And so that's challenging, of course, because of the mindset, of the cultural sort of environment that our students have grown up in. But um, I think we are trying to do that, and we're trying to draw our students out, make sure that they know that they're also responsible for the learning, that we need to meet each other halfway. So things are changing. It will take a bit of time, but I think I would say that it's an encouraging scenario as we go forward. Um, and of course, there are so many. Each individual student has different problems, personal problems, and especially now after the pandemic, health problems, mental issues. A lot of these things come to face us every day. So being able to deal with those things empathetically, and trying to find the best outcome so that the student is not doesn't drop out, or find that they need to leave or something like that. Those things are very important. Financial needs, that's another big thing that has come to face us now after the pandemic. So all these things, we're faced with these things as teachers every day. And because we are, the center of a teacher's world is the students. So to make sure that our students um, are able to deal with all these difficulties that they're facing and still be able to make something of themselves, encouraging them to participate in different activities, that's very challenging as well. People come to me for recommendation letters, and then when I ask them, okay, tell me something about yourself that you've done outside of academia, and they say, I've done nothing. And so what do I write about you? So you must have done something. Think about it. What about outside of your school, outside, in your home? Somewhere you must have done something. Even the smallest thing, highlight that. Tell me about it. Someone has published something, but they don't think it worthwhile to talk about. Well, tell me about that. Because it's something to be published somewhere, to be, maybe it's a small poem or a small story somewhere, but it's there. Tell me about that. So those are things that I think are challenging as well, to draw the students' talents out.
Out of their
Because
shells.
yeah, out of their shells, exactly. Because a lot of them quiet students, they think they've done nothing, but in fact they have. Probably even, the other day, someone was one of my students. She was, after thinking, a lot, she came out with, I did, take my maid's daughter and I taught her how to read. I said, well, there's the something, right? You've done a great job, you've given her an opportunity. So this is something you need to tell me about. And then her whole facial expression changed, like, eureka, I found it. Something like that. So they don't think that these are important enough to mention, but it is
I
important
think,
that you look at
yeah, I
every
think it's also kind
activity.
of
And
cultural. I think
yeah,
there is a little
that's
bit
true.
of cultural thing as well, because we kind of think that, what have I done? I have not done anything, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, But there is, of course, the other danger that, some people will go out of their way to highlight every little thing, and then that can be, have
That
the
can be
opposite effect.
that can be problematic.
Yeah, that can be
Yes.
another problem as well. So knowing how to balance that also is important. So yeah, that's my message to my students through this platform. Actually, thank you for asking
Okay.
that.
So let me then get to Marzia, because the other thing that Marzia does is she writes flash fictions, because flash fiction is something that uh, at least in our part of the world, I find that there are actually very few uh, good flash fiction writers. I think it's, I know it has been there for some time, but in our country, I think it's still, or the way I see it, it's still not so popular. We are still into like short stories, short
Right.
fiction. So, Marcia, I mean, you know, you do translation, but you said that you also write, and we know that you write, but what made you interested in flash fiction? Is there any particular reason why you prefer to write flash?
Yeah. Sohanapa, I have been writing, as I said before, for 15 years now, and I realized recently that I have been writing flashes from very early in my career. But like everyone else, I didn't know myself that they are called flashes. I thought they are just very, very short stories. So,
Okay.
and then and once I started it, I just wanted to keep going. They are so much fun to write. It's fun, it's quick. You can write a flash, a microfiction short story within 3 4 days, and then you take days or weeks to polish them. But what made me really interested is that when I found there is a huge market in the West for flashes, and in the last couple of years I got my flashes published in more than 50 journals outside. And there is a big community of flash fiction writers. They regularly hold competition, festival, workshops. I attended one or two workshops online, and they hold festivals too, flash fiction festivals. So what happened last year, there is a flash fiction festival. They hold it in person, but because of COVID they held it in online. So what I wanted to join the festival, so but you have to pay 30 pounds. The ticket was 30 pounds, and you have to pay it through PayPal. But Bangladesh, we do not have PayPal here. So what I did, I wrote to Jude Higgins, the director of the festival, and she is a flash fiction writer herself. So I wrote to her and I said that we don't have PayPal here. So is there any other way I can pay the ticket, because I really want to join the festival. So she is such a lovely person. She sent me free ticket, and she sent me the link. It was a 2 day festival, and there was competitions, there was workshops, there was yoga online, and there was chat room, and they held a number of competitions. So I attended one of the competitions, and I don't know how, but my story won the first prize. We were given a prompt.
Yes, I
The
remember
prompt,
hearing about
the
that. Yeah.
prompt was painted on a mug, on a glass, and we were given this prompt. We have to write story on insanity. So I don't know, for the life of me, I don't know how I did it, but I won the first prize, and now Judy again's writing me, asking me how she will send me the ticket, the prize money, which is again 30 pounds, because we don't have paper. So she asked me if she could instead send me some books, and of course the mug, and the complimentary flash fiction festival for complimentary copy. So I said, okay, I'd love to have the books, because we do not have flash fiction books here. We can't buy those books here. So she sent me a beautiful box from UK. There are two books, there are one mug, and the complimentary copy. Yes, and another thing happened. When they announced my name as a winner, they mentioned me as an Indian writer. So they are not familiar with Bangladeshi writers, and there are not many South Asian writers writing flashes. I know only two Indian writers, one Pakistani writer. And so then I have to write another mail to Jude Higgins that please change it. I'm not an Indian writer. So yes, this is how it started. But once I started it, as I said before, I can't stop it. So much fun. And I think flash fiction has taught me a lot about writings, because it teaches you to write tight. It's like a training in sharp, concise writing. With so little space to tell a story, every word has to carry its weight. So I think it has taught me a lot. And I have tried my hand on different genres over the years. And I think I finally found the genre I'm most comfortable in, or I love, or the genre found me. I think we have found each other. So I proudly call myself a flash fiction writer now. And yes, it's
No,
not
yeah,
popular.
because yeah, it's not popular, but like I have published a few of your
Yeah,
flash
yeah, you
fictions.
have you have published a
And,
lot of my
yeah,
flashes.
yeah,
Thanks to
and
you and
I
thanks
got
to Delhi.
no, I got very good responses too. Like people have
Okay.
kind of responded very well, but the term flash fiction, I believe, is not uh, too familiar in Bangladesh yet. Many people
Mhm.
like send me flash fictions and they call it microfiction or something of that sort. So I think that name has to be kind of popularized. Like people are familiar with the genre,
Yeah.
but I mean what it is, but not the name. And so saying that, so as a flash fiction writer, Marcia, how do you feel about it? Like, what are the prospects of flash fiction in Bangladesh? What do you think?
Yeah, as you said, that people here are not familiar with the term. I think it's now that we divide the two genres. We call short story, and we start calling flash fiction, because any story under 1,000 words are called flashes, and microfiction stories under 500 words. And then there is dribble or drabble, 100 word stories, 50 word stories,
Yes.
75 word story, 6 sentences story.
What is
And
the
I have written all.
sentence?
I've written all kinds of stories, and I got them published actually. So what we should do, we should popularize the genre by calling flash fiction. Let's not call flash fiction a short story, because we have short stories. Why do you need to call flash fiction also short stories? And I think we have flash fiction writers, but they themselves do not know they are writing flashes, because I've read wonderful pieces in arts and letters, in your page, Star Literary page. I think even in Six Seasons Review, I've read beautiful pieces, and they are wonderful flashes, all very very short stories. So I think since it became so popular in the West, it will be eventually in our country, because for any genre to develop or to gain popularity it takes time. And I think the explosive growth of the internet is one reason why flash fiction became so widely popular. Flash fiction actually works well online. So I think it will be eventually, and we'll have many flash fiction writers in the future, and no one will call us Indian writers. They will know that
Yeah.
Bangladeshi writers also writing flash fictions. Yes.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, I think in one of the problems and challenges, as you were asking me earlier on, is about what I face in the classroom or in the academia, and one of those things is students don't want to read. Reading is a chore. Reading is difficult. Reading is time consuming. So to get into that habit, I think flashes can be a
Yeah.
very good support for that. So
Yeah.
to my students, again, my message is, if you cannot read the bigger pieces, start with the flashes,
Small
and
ones.
get into the habit. Yes. So yeah, thank you, Marzia, for writing them. They're beautiful
Oh,
stories.
thank you. And I think anyone who is hesitant to be a writer or wants to try his or her hand on writing, they should start with flashes. It's a wonderful training. Then later they can pick up other genres, but start with flashes. My advice: start with flashes.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
Flash is the one good thing that I mean, I have tried my hand at Flashes. I believe that, uh, you know, the thing you said that, within a very small space, it's like you have to know how to carry it out, the tension, the drama, and it
Yeah.
really is a very good exercise before you can actually take up short, bigger, longer stories, or other kinds of things. And it's a very kind of like our time kind of thing, this flash fiction. Okay, so we don't really have much time left. Like, so let's say, let's then talk about like what are you currently doing? What are your like some of the projects that you're working on related to like translation or writing or whatever? What are you doing? What are your plans?
Arifa will go first. You want to go first?
You can go ahead.
Okay. So I'm currently translating Saliha Chaudhury's novella, একজন জুসনারা's গল্প. Actually, the writer commissioned the work, so I'm very happy about it. It's a novella, and it's a story about a Sileti girl, a village girl. She gets married to this migrant worker in UK, and he takes her to London, locks her up in an apartment, and tortures her to death. It's a very, very dark story. Sometimes I have to shut the book because I feel I need to breathe. This is such a dark story, and it this kind of things happen a lot in UK. So Saliha Appa wanted to tell this story about village girls who gets married to migrant workers and then how they are tortured. So yeah, this is one project, and I'm also working on a series of flashes. Actually, what happened last year? I won two competitions organized by the literary magazine, the Antony. So after I won the competition, the founder or editor of the magazine, he offered me to do a series. So it's a collaborative work. I'm working with Sanyal. He's a photographer, an Indian poet, and editor. So what he does, he takes pictures. He takes wonderful pictures of cities, of the buildings, people, everything. So he takes pictures and he sends them to me, and I pick the pictures that appeal to me, and I use them as prompt for my stories. So I'm doing this series. So let's see where it goes. It's a montage. So my flashes and his pictures. So I'm very excited about this hybrid genre, and this is the first time I'm working on hybrid genre. So yeah, I'm very happy about it. I'm also polishing my novella in Flash. The title is "If Dreams Had Wings and Houses Were Built on Clouds." It was longlisted in the BAT Novella in Flash Award competition this year. So I'm just polishing it. I want to send it to publishers. So these are the projects I'm working on. Yes.
Seems very exciting, especially there are like this hybrid genres. Okay, so, so it's like I really like to see uh, what it comes to.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I did with one of my stories, this hybrid genre, I wanted to see whether I can bring another medium. So I can only post it in Insta or social or Facebook, his picture, my story, and what about adding song to it? So I tried my hand on it, and the story title was Malti, a girl, Adibashi girl. She looked like a Adibashi girl from the picture. So I choose a song from Adibashi song, and Ramati, he sang the song. So I choose it, and I asked for his permission too, whether I can use his song or not. And he has no idea about copyright. He said, "Why can't you use my song? Please use it, no problem." So, so I wanted to see if I could bring three mediums together, but finally it didn't work. It was too much to put the song to this hybrid genre, but I applied it elsewhere and I see it worked very well, and it was very interesting. There is a picture and the song is playing in the background, and you have the story. You can read the story as well. It's very interesting. I think I would like to work on more on this hybrid genre. Yeah.
No, I think you are interested in hybrid genre because I remember you sent me like those hermit crab nonfiction and
Mhm.
fiction. Those are also
Yeah.
like very interesting. I got a quite a bit of responses from the readers. Okay. Arif Appa, would you like to say anything, add
Yeah,
anything?
I have. I'm not doing anything as exciting as Marzia, but wow, I'm really looking forward to your work. That's probably going to come out soon, I hope. I am, as you mentioned, in my intro, I did do a lot of translations of Shaheen Akhtar, and she is my favorite author at the moment, and I want to do more work with her. She's a lovely person to work with, and because I've already translated quite a few of her stories, I have been thinking, I did talk to her about this, about perhaps bringing out a collection of her stories. So that's pretty much my the work on translation that I'm doing now. And because usually what happens is I take up a story here and there, especially when there's an occasion up ahead. I translate for that, or someone asks me to do that, so I do that on the fly. It's not like something that I constantly work on. So right now, so this is what I'm doing, just trying to get together the information about Shaheen Akhtar. I just recently published a bio article on Shaheen Akhtar in the Literary Encyclopedia, and I'm supposed to be doing one on her book Talash. So those are the things that I'm working on right now. Um, but one thing I would like to say, since I have the floor, is that we need recognition as translators. And that's something that, has been a pet peeve of mine, not seeing, translators acknowledged or visible along with the writer, because I feel that the translator is almost as important as the writer, because yes, there is an original story for which the writer deserves absolute credit, but then the transcreation or the translation itself needs to be acknowledged, because it is because of the translator that it is out there in that format. So the translator needs to be acknowledged, and of course the copyright issues. I had a recent experience, not such a pleasant experience actually, but I hope that it has been, was resolved nicely with the person. But one of my translations was published by a magazine, and the editor had not taken permission from me, because he had got the permission of the writer. It was a Sayyid Manzoor Islam sir's story, and he asked sir, and sir said fine, but sir probably wasn't aware that it was the translation that was going in. So the editor did not consult me. So I was surprised to see it, with my name and everything in the caption and all that. And I was surprised that how did this get in here, and I didn't know anything about it. So I asked the editor, and it took some time for him to understand that he should have also had the courtesy to, ask me, or at least, I wouldn't have said no, of course, but at least to, out of courtesy, to inform me before my name was put out there. So, but it was resolved later on. He apologized, and I hope that it won't happen with other people in the future. But this is something that I feel that should be recognized, and we do need to be acknowledged in the appropriate manner, because I think we do a little service here.
No,
Um,
no, it's true. It's true. It's
yeah,
one problem that I often face. Like people just take things from daily start literature page, thinking that they can just do it, but it's not like that. They need to take proper permission and all that. So
right.
yeah.
So copyright issues, I don't think it's very well known or acknowledged, and that's also a problem. So those are things that I think people need to be aware of. So that's you know thank you.
Okay. So we are like just dot 7:59. So we are like on good time. So okay, once again, Arifapa, Marcia, thank you so much for being with us, and it was really wonderful. Like a lot of the issues that we talked about yesterday, today. I mean, they are like really important for translation and editing, like copyright issues. These are something that we are not so well aware of, but hopefully people will take note and people will be more conscious. So that's it. So please,
Thank you, Sohana.
thank you once again.
Thank you so much for having us. This was